my favourite ultramarathon? Well, that's easy. It's the SainteLyon. I love the SainteLyon. I loved it from the moment I stood on the start line. There was something about it that no other race has ever given me, and perhaps never will, which is, I believe, what draws me back. It is a race full of languages, accents and culture from all over the world, although oddly hardly anyone from the United Kingdom. And having run nearly 70 times, it is one of the oldest races of its kind, although its form and distance has changed many times over the years. The current SainteLyon is between 70 and 80 kilometres with around 2,000 metres of elevation. What doesn't change is the night raid element of the SainteLyon. Starting near midnight, you head out into the wilds of France from SainteLyon to face every kind of terrain. Rocky, hard-packed, muddy, and even some of that tarmac stuff. But it's not the terrain that will get you at SainteLyon, it is the conditions you'll face. It's highly likely you'll face ice, and potentially lots of it as I did in 2017, or oodles of mud or lashings of rain. The point I'm groping for is that it is the winter running part of the race that is the challenge, and while the elevation and the course may look easier than other events, when you combine it with its late night December start, then the SainteLyon is as much a running tour de force as many of its illustrious siblings. It's the start line for me that is most special at the SainteLyon. As your wave slowly filters to the start, you soak up this amazing atmosphere, something that I've never experienced anywhere else. Then, with a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're off, and you begin your run to Lyon. I recall the cold of the night. It seemed to make everything take much longer, and as I swept through the streets and villages around SainteLyon, I was wondering when the trail would appear. The people of the villages and towns that we were passing, though, would often line the streets with cowbells ringing out, praising our efforts, and I very much appreciated that the community cares about the competitors and the race. I loved listening to the runners yapping away in those early stages, and even though I speak very poor broken French, I could often make myself understood. Some Moroccan runners I met found it hilarious that every time we passed each other they would shout loudly, "Hey, Liverpool!" in response to my Scouse lineage, and I responded with cries of my own in return. It was absolutely joyous. Starting at night and running through it is a tremendous challenge, and you never really get to witness the beauty of the course because you're always shrouded in darkness. But that in itself brings its own beauty. In amongst the twinkling headlights and moonlight, you see the shadows dancing around you, and if you get a clear night, you can see through the darkness to the hills and landscapes around you. There really is something quite magnificent here. I remember running through the long, narrow, icy sections and seeing runners all around me falling and slipping in a part of the race where you are clearly in the middle of nowhere. The race organisers had quad bikes with medics running up and down the route to collect the dead and dying, and although I'd managed to keep my feet, even I had taken a fall or two. But the conditions were treacherous in a way that made this feel both exciting and a little bit dangerous. On reflection, when I saw what I believed was the air ambulance landed in a field near the course, you are reminded that ultra running is an extreme sport, and no matter how experienced you are, sometimes crappy things happen. But I wasn't the runner that needed either the quad bike or the air ambulance. I was the podgy English runner making his way through the night and into the first warmth of daylight. I was probably about 13 miles from the end when light struck the course, and I received an immediate emotional and mental uplift because it was the first light I had seen since the race began. I felt elated, and the warmth of the day was generous. perhaps a little too generous to be fair, and I found myself much warmer than you might expect competing in a December ultramarathon. But the daylight brought newfound energy, and with the throngs of runners having thinned out over the course, I opened out my stride and let my legs awaken before they would be required to carry me home. Running alongside the river now, I could feel the buzz of the race again. I was back amongst support, and the peace of the previous few miles was punctured by the swell of noise that grows as you cross the river and into the final stretch. The great noise of supporters lining the route is added to by the general population and tourists of Lyon who will you home. And for my part, I felt my chest puff outward, my legs draw themselves higher, and I began my sprint to the finish line. A final flourish to that line gave the crowd something to cheer. Yes, I may not be finishing first, but I am finishing with style. SainteLyon, I salute you. And so, that was the SainteLyon, my favourite ultramarathon. You can find out more at SainteLyon.com. Well, race entries usually open in April, and the race takes place in December. See you out there.